And once more, dear friends, we are going into the breach. Oh, you're Catholic? Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the Frontline with Joe and Joe. You acted like an American, okay? Now, there's a number of different things that have to be done in this country to change the culture, which will in turn change the politics.
And the culture's a swamp. Because that is not a Catholic teaching.
Right.
And the cafeteria is closed, my friend.
Yeah. Joe Pasillo, joined as always by Joe Resinello. And once more, dear friends, we are going into the breach. He tells the truth, just like we do at the Frontline with Joe and Joe on Sunday nights, 8 o'clock, Facebook Live. We got a great show for you tonight because, as we always say, the left is teeing it up for us, and we're Barry Bonds standing at home plate, ready to knock their lies right into San Francisco Bay. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, joined as always by Joe Resinello. And once more, dear friends, let us all go into the breach. So our apologies, according to my clock, we're about 3/4 of the hour past 8 o'clock. We might just actually start going on at 8:30. But and we know a couple people had messaged us and say, hey, you guys going on tonight? Every Sunday night we're going to be here because we have to fight the godless left and do it with everything we got. So we're into the breach. We're going to get into a lot of great topics tonight and things that are going to get all our collective blood boiling. But remember, please like our page on Facebook. Share it with your friends, please. Our interviews, our videos, they're all titled. They're all dated. You'll know exactly what it is we're talking about. And please follow us over on HolyFaith Media on YouTube. Jonathan Ross over there produces our content. And puts it up there along with a lot of other great content. And we do, yes, ask you to subscribe. There is a little financial commitment to the Crusade channel, Mike Church's radio channel out of New Orleans. Joe and I have a weekly gig on there now. Monday nights, we do the drive time. I think it's 6 to 9. Okay, we get nothing from it. We receive no financial benefit from it. It's a great channel with a lot of great content, not just the Frontline with Joe and Joe. We do talk about a lot of the same things there that we do here, and in our same North Jersey style, which is always loving and kind. Okay, maybe not
and gentle.
And gentle, and then never, ever bombastic. Okay, if you believe that, I got a bridge to sell you in Brooklyn. Anyway, Joe Resinello.
Well,
where are we headed?
Well, I guess we got to start out with Super Tuesday. I mean, we would be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about that since it's a weekly show. That was a big event. Basically, Biden exceeded expectations. I wrongly assumed Biden wasn't going to capitalize on his South Carolina victory, but he did.
You're not usually wrong, Joe Resinello.
No, but at the same time, I truly, it was surprising. What is interesting, the DNC party leadership clearly loathes Sanders and is trying to do everything they possibly can.
Well, we saw that with the media, too.
Absolutely.
Right.
I mean, that's just a fact.
Chris Matthews is up there talking like a Ronald Reagan conservative, blasting Bernie Sanders. Did you catch that, by the way?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I was listening to if I didn't know Chris Matthews, I would say he's a conservative Republican. I mean, it was blasted Sanders, blasted socialism and all that. Chris Matthews in his style. So you see it in the media.
I mean, clearly, it was. I don't think it was basically happenstance that all these folks basically bowed out. When I mean folks, you had Mayor Pete bowed out, Amy Klobuchar bowed out, all before Super Tuesday. All of which, I mean, he carried Minnesota as a result of that. That was huge. Mm-hmm. So basically, there was definitely a conference call, if you ask me. In terms of Warren not bowing out before Super Tuesday, I thought that was interesting, that she remained in and bowed out after the fact. I thought that was interesting. The question now is this. When Biden gets the nomination, and I do believe he will the Bernie bros come out and vote for Joe B? Because they are true believers.
Does their hatred of Donald Trump extend so far that they would vote for a guy who they know in their hearts they don't want to vote for, namely Joe Biden? No,
that's the question.
Now that's a question. I think you and I might disagree with that. I think they're going to do. I gave the example that they'll do what I did in 2012 when I voted for Romney. I didn't want Romney. He was the nominee. I did not like Barack Obama, so it was an anti-Obama vote. The Bernie bros might say, well, at least we'll get judges that will be approved by the party, because Biden's not going to choose judges. He's going to nominate judges that are approved by the party. They're all going to be pro-LGBT, pro-abortion, pro all this nonsense. They might do it for that. They're not getting universal health care out of Joe Biden. Well, Bernie's not getting universal health care through our Congress. It's not going to happen. Okay, he's not going to be able to do that. But they'll hold their nose with that stuff, figuring they'll get judges. That's my view. I could be wrong, and Joe might be right. They might stay home. They might contemplate their navel while drinking a Budweiser, or Budweiser might be too American. You know what kind of beer they drink? They drink the beer that's produced by that brash brewing company down in Texas, who held a satanic mass in front of their brewery. That's their brewery. In other words, that's their beer of choice. It's a craft beer. I'm sure it's very good, and of course, it's possessed by Satan. So
makes it even better.
But those guys, we don't know what they're going to do. The Bernie Bros, they're scary. But it's interesting you brought up Elizabeth Warren. Okay, you think she got a phone call?
Oh, she was in on it.
She got a phone call from the DNC and said, "You stay right where you are because you're taking votes away from Sanders." All right, and we need Biden to win on Super Tuesday.
But as far as Biden being the delegate, I mean, let's be honest. Biden's weaknesses as a candidate are still there, and they're only going to become more obvious to the voters as time goes on. His foreign policy record will provide Trump with tons of fodder, and his poor debate performances will make him an easy target for the incumbent. This is a fact. Joe Biden is a disaster. He is a disaster. And these are the two reasons why I don't care what anybody says, why I believe Donald Trump will be the president. Here are my reasons. One, I don't think the true believers are going to be motivated, i.e. the young kids who think they're going to get their college loans paid for outside of Sanders being the candidate. I don't think they're going to show up because Biden is old and his message is old as well. And secondly, the African-American vote, who Biden thinks is going to get large numbers. Frankly, last time I checked, 30% of the African Americans are for Donald Trump.
Or at least they're expressing support for the direction the country's going in, and they give Donald Trump credit for it. Unlike the rest of the, let's say, the black liberal establishment, who Trump is, by the way, so you all know, he's responsible for the coronavirus. He's responsible for it. He brought this on it. If your grandmother dies from the coronavirus, blame Donald Trump. So if a black person dies because they get the coronavirus, they'll say it was because of Donald Trump, because of racist Donald Trump. That's 70% of the people who are never the Donna Brazils of the world. They're part of the black liberal establishment. The independent-minded black people out there who have voted Democrat in the past, okay, there's a change, just like with Catholics 50 years ago. During the 60s, there was a change. Catholics primarily voted Democrat. After the 1960s, they transitioned. They started voting for conservatives and Republicans, mainly because they were against abortion and all the sexual liberation of the 1960s that the Democratic Party embraced, and their socialism, okay? So black people are starting to come around, and they're expressing support for Donald Trump. And no, Joe Biden's not going to get 92% of the black vote.
No way.
No way.
No way.
And that's what has them share. Look, these people are numbers people. They look at groups and they say, what percentage of this group do we have to get? And with black people, it's 90%. Okay? Anything less than 90% makes them quake.
It's like the Republicans losing the NRA.
Yeah.
They need the vote. And if you don't get it, you lose. And frankly, you're not getting those large numbers. You're not. Not
like you were accustomed to in the past. Like I said to you before, even if it's not 30%, even if it's 15% of all African-American voters who vote for Donald Trump, that is a big problem for the Democrats. Because they have to make that up somewhere else. Okay? Where are they going to go? The Jews? Now, the leftist Jews are just going to vote against Donald Trump because they don't care. But your more moderate Jews, and certainly your conservative Jews, Trump moved the embassy to Tel Aviv. He ripped up the Iran nuclear agreement, regardless of what you think of those things. I'm just talking about his appeal to Jewish Americans, okay? A lot of those people who traditionally vote Democrat, they say, I got no problem with Donald Trump, okay? A lot of those Orthodox Jews who, let's say, vote Democrat on a certain level in Brooklyn, they're not going to vote for, their attitude is, no, Donald Trump's been all right. So where are their numbers going to come? Catholics are showing more of a support for Donald Trump than they have in the past,
because of pro-life.
All right, because of the pro-life issues, and the Democratic Party has gone way off into the abyss of hell on this issue. Okay, so where are they going to go? 7% more of the African American community is a very big deal. It's a huge deal.
I think it's going to be more than that. I think
I was just trying to be, I was just trying to be conservative.
But I think it'll be even more than that.
Right.
Because to be honest with you, the jobs are there. And you can't tell somebody who's bringing food home who wasn't in the past and was willing to work. You can't lie to them.
All right. And don't forget their tax cut. Don't forget the guy now has a job, and the tax rate is a lot lower than it was before Donald Trump came into office. So now even if he doesn't lose his job, which he probably will under a Biden regime, because the first thing he's going to do is he's going to raise taxes, okay? So many of those same African Americans will now be out of the job. But they're also saying, I work, might not be the ultimate job I want, but I have a job and I can put the food on the table. But they know that Biden, the first thing he's going to do is he's going to raise their taxes, okay? They're going to do a lot to try to repeal Trump's tax cuts. So that person has no reason, no self-interested reason to vote for Joe Biden. Again, if you're independent-minded, if you're a lockstep establishment Black American, you're voting Democrat. No matter. It's like talking to some old school Italian Catholics who say, "Oh, I no vote a Republican. I never vote a Republican. They're too much for the rich. They don't, they just keep voting Democrat no matter what." Well,
I'll leave you with this. Joe Biden, who's always prone for some good gaffes, one that I thought was fantastic. I just wanted to leave you. This is what he said in Texas. He said, "We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women are created by the thing."
Guy calls himself a faithful Roman Catholic, by the way.
The thing.
The thing. You see, now you wonder sometimes, we're not God, but you wonder sometimes what God thinks about that.
It's called the Creator, Joe.
It's called the Creator.
And that one you learn in like 4th grade civics class.
Well, he went to Catholic school, didn't he? He probably learned that in 1st grade. Oh, well, you know what I mean.
I mean, listen, all people make mistakes. I make mistakes. But listen.
You're not making that one, Joe.
If this is your guy, good luck.
If your guy is creepy Joe Biden, who can't put a sentence together in a coherent way and doesn't know how to use the word creator, he says, the thing.
The thing.
The thing. He sounded like he was from Newark.
He did.
You're right. The thing. When we say, the thing, we mean the Italian hot dog you get on Bloomfield Avenue.
That's the thing.
That's Dickie D's. Or you order the thing. Oh, no, that means order the pizza. You don't refer to God, the Creator,
as the thing.
As the thing. And Joe Biden did. And let me tell you something. They say gas could really cost you an election. Not for nothing. If I was even inclined to voting for Joe Biden, I might say, I can't vote for this guy.
I'll be honest with you. Listen, all people make mistakes. I get it. But that's off the hook. That's off the hook. And all I could say is this. It's going to be an entertaining campaign season, my friend.
I told you I said that.
It's going to be entertaining.
I had a liberal friend at work. He no longer works with me, but I had a liberal friend before the election in 2016. He says, "So Joe, now real liberal, right?" And he knew my position on everything. He goes, "So Joe, what do you think? What do you think about the whole election cycle? What's your thoughts on it?" And I said the words Joe just said. I said, "It's going to be fun and entertaining." This dude, he was like beside himself. Because the whole idea of Trump was like horrific to them, right? Well, the whole idea of Hillary was horrific to me. But I could laugh about it because I realized that if Hillary got elected, God is still God and the sky is above us and the earth is below us, okay? So I could laugh. You could laugh about these things. It's like it blew his mind. Fun and entertaining? Yeah. I know babies being butchered in the womb is horrible. I get all the problems in the world, okay? I get it. I read it. Joe and I are here because we talk about it. But our politics is really sometimes just boils down to fun and entertaining. That's what it is. And I, for one, I am looking forward to being entertained beyond belief.
Oh, Joe Biden's going to offer up some beauty.
We're going to start calling him on the show. We're going to start calling him the Biden machine.
Oh.
In other words, not the gaffe machine, just the Biden machine.
I love when he gets mad. He'll throw out, "What are you talking about, Jack?" He
wants to beat the hell out of everybody. He wants to
be like a
I'm doing push-ups with you right now. You're lying pony-faced soldier boy.
What are you talking about, Jack? Let's go have a push-up contest.
Right. In the meantime, he's 79 years old. If he did a push-up, he'd die. We don't wish it. So anyway, we want to thank you for being at the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello. We are way into the breach Sunday nights on Facebook Live. We got James joining us. Edward, great to see you, fellas. Great to see you, Edward. Great to see you all. Maria Bellini Balika. I love your name, Maria. We have not seen you before, and we thank you for joining us here at the front line. Please stay with us. Share our show with your friends. We got Aldo with us. Dan, good evening, Jump. Dan commented, yes, Dan, we've been starting late the last few weeks just for some personal reasons, but we're here. We're never going to not do the show. We should have actually put something up on our page to let you know we were starting later. We will remember that next week. We won't let that happen again. But, Dan, thank you so much. I got my baby out there. Join us. Eddie Mejias is down in Florida. And Eddie just he released his campaign. Eddie's running for Congress. And I don't know all of Eddie's views. I don't. I know Eddie's a good guy. I know he's conservative Republican, leans more towards libertarian. Okay, good guy. I think he would be great in the House of Representatives from knowing him. And you know, I'm going to learn more about him. But I would recommend people looking into Eddie and supporting his campaign down there in Florida for Congress. Barbara, hello from Wisconsin. Hello, Mara Love. Welcome from North Jersey. And Barbara said, I hear they want Biden on the ticket because the DNC wants someone they can manipulate. I also heard that Hillary's going to pop up out of nowhere. I feel it's going to be Biden. It's probably going to be Biden. I don't know what role Hillary would play. And you're absolutely right, Barbara. For this party to put this guy, this machine, this gaffe machine up there means they have something else up their sleeve. My personal opinion, I've said it before to Joe Resinello, is they're going to put Buttigieg on the ticket and hope to God Biden croaks or the CIA takes him out so we get what the Democrats really want, which is the first gay president. Vinny's joining us. Thank you. Vinny from Hoboken. Vinny, Senator Sanders is getting screwed. And Ed said, you have great faith if you feel like you could survive a Hillary presidency. Well, surviving, I don't know. I mean, it would be very difficult, Edward. But what I would tell you this, no leader. Okay, we're Catholics. We're all Catholic. Right? I'm assuming everybody here is Catholic or Christian for the most part. Okay, you can make an argument that one of the most powerful people in human history at their moment in time was Nero. And although Nero killed many Catholics, early Catholics, okay, and members of the church, okay, he's dead. His successors are no longer here, and the successor of the first apostles is sitting in the Vatican right now. So the thing is, yes, it takes great faith. These people ultimately won't win, okay? They can kill you, but they can't take your soul. And that's our hope, is that our hope is in Jesus Christ. They cannot take our soul. And that's why we have hope. And as far as the politics are concerned, we still live in America, and America doesn't seem to let things go too far. If Obama didn't destroy us, Hillary can't destroy us. Anyway, thanks, Ed, for the comment. And you're at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe, where are we headed next?
We're going to Wisconsin.
Barbara, we're going to Wisconsin.
An 18-year-old Wisconsin student was arrested Thursday for fourth-degree sexual assault, child enticement, and exposing his genitals to a child in the school's gender-neutral bathroom.
Repeat that, Joe. What kind of bathroom was it?
It's a gender-neutral bathroom.
This is what they're pushing for.
This is real time because we're going to go through a number of examples now. This is real going on in this country. There's a little statistic to throw at you from the Christian Post. In 2017, they gathered a list of over 20 circumstances. This was 3 years ago, where women were assaulted in bathrooms by biological men claiming the identity of women in public bathrooms.
So they won't broadcast that on MSNBC.
This is what is going on in our public schools right now. How are we allowing this? You see, this is what Joe Biden stands for.
At least now
this is what every Democrat stands for. Do you have daughters? I have a daughter. I'm appalled. I am appalled. Do you have a wife? You should be appalled. You see, too many of the metrosexuals in the city who basically, frankly, a lot of them don't even have kids. They support this crap. But at the end of the day, regular people who are struggling to make a living, who have children, who care about their children, this is real.
Aren't they supposed to trust that the law is going to protect their child?
Nope.
In
Doesn't
this case,
seem that way.
the law is designed to leave their child at the mercy of predators. Yeah, I know that's politically incorrect to say, but we don't really care because it's true. This kid that walked into this bathroom is a predator. He exposes genitals to this young girl. Okay, and now he's under arrest. He should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, and then the law should say there are no more unisex bathrooms.
Well, that's not...
Men use the men's room, and if your man dressed up like a woman, as my mother would say with her Italian accent, it's too bad. It's too bad. You want to dress like a woman, but you're a man. You go into the men's room. And if you're a chick and you think you're a guy, you go into the ladies' room. That's the way this works, you see.
Do we even have to say that?
Yes, we do.
That's the sick
We're
part.
at the point in this country.
Do you even have to say that? Because we're going to go through a couple instances. It's not just in Wisconsin. We're going to go to San Francisco and the disgusting Ninth Circuit. This is what they decided with Parents for Privacy versus Bar. It favored an Oregon public school district's student safety plan. Now get this. That allows transgender students to use the bathrooms that correspond to their gender identity and rejects parent and student concerns about privacy.
So you're rejected under the law.
Your parents, the concerns. This is what's happening in America. Let's go to Dallas. The student safety plan of Dallas school districts places students' gender identity above biological sex and allows students who claim to be transgender to use bathrooms, locker rooms, showers that correspond to their gender identity. So let me set the stage in Dallas, Texas.
Go ahead, Joe.
You have a 14-year-old girl who is a little shy, and she's a freshman, and she plays soccer. And some guy who's saying he's a girl is on the soccer team. By law, that guy who's 18 and a senior can shower with your 14-year-old daughter. Are you out of your mind?
Yes, they're out of their mind.
And let me just say this. You vote for the Democrats?
That's what
you're
get.
voting for.
That's what you get when you vote for the Democrats. That's why no sane person can vote for it. I don't care what your position is on the border. I don't care what your position is on let's say, global economics. You vote for them, you're voting for this. Because they're not going to, because if you do vote for them for those other issues, on this, they're going to say to you, you shut up. You say, yeah, but I voted for you, but you won't let me have my voice. You don't have a voice in the Democratic Party. You have to go along with everything they said. Don't you get it? There's no big tent in the Democratic Party. There's no diversity of thought in the Democratic Party. They have their platform, and if you vote for them, you are agreeing to every part of their platform, and you will say nothing about it. Pete Buttigieg told Kristen Day that when she said, will you moderate the language, the abortion language in the Democratic platform to accommodate 21 million pro-life Democrats? I'm not going to say what he said because what he said was bullcrap. Okay? What he said really, in reality, was kick rocks. We don't care what you have to say. Vote for us, vote for us. Don't vote for us, don't vote for us. We're not changing the language. And they're not changing this. That's why we need to vote for Trump so we get more judges so the Ninth Circuit can't do this anymore.
Well, speaking of judges, and this shocked me, but in the same sense it didn't. Do you know that in 2019, the Supreme Court denied to take up a case against transgender policies, school policies, and it doesn't shock me. Because Judge John Roberts is a coward. He's a political animal. This does not even have to go to court. I don't even know how this has even come to this, that we're having this discussion. This is an embarrassment to this country. It's straight up and down common sense.
Right.
You do not permit a boy to shower with a girl that's under 18. I don't care what the heck that boy calls himself. Sorry, wrong.
Right, and we need to say it, not to the kid. We need to tell the kid's parents. You will tell your kid. See, if I'm a father of that 14-year-old girl, I'm going to tell the father of that 18-year-old boy, you better tell your son to stay out of my girl's locker room. Yeah, but my son thinks, I don't really care how poorly you raised your child, because obviously you did. But if your 18-year-old son goes into that locker room again where my 14-year-old daughter is, you as a parent are going to have a problem with me. See, we don't do that in this country. And I'm not talking about physical violence, but we need to call people out and say, I promise you this is not going to happen again. And we need to start filing lawsuits. And the judges are being put in place. We need to do what the left has done for a century. Start filing lawsuits. File lawsuits, lawsuits, lawsuits. There's plenty of organizations out there that will take up these cases. Alliance Defending Freedom, American Center for Law and Justice, St. Thomas More Society. Say we're fighting against this law. They won't let us do anything about it. Let's start filing lawsuits. Guess what? Roberts, at some point, with enough lawsuits, they're going to have to start hearing cases.
And you parents out there that send your kids to public school, because 85% of American kids go to public schools, start going on the board and start making your voices heard.
Start running. Listen,
start rattling the cage a little
bit. Those people get paid to be on the board. You start getting paid to be on the board. If I was making enough money as a member of the school board, then I didn't have to go to my day. I'll go become a member of the school. I'll run for the school board. I'll go sit on there. I'll rally other men and women who think like me in our area, and we'll go sit on the school board. And every time they come up with this, say, absolutely not. Yeah, but and guess what they'll do? Now, see, this is my point. They'll file a suit. You see, we have to start doing that. File suits. That's what they would do. If you had a conservative school board that ruled that no, this is nonsense. Boys are going in the boys' room and the locker room, and girls are going in the girls' room, they'll file a lawsuit. They'll get the ACLU or the Southern Poverty Law Center, okay? Because this is what they do. Why do we not fight the way they do? Why do we not fight the way they do? No, we're going to file a suit against you, and we're going to sue you personally. How's that? Karen's chiming in. Karen, what's happening? She says, I got 2 sons in the public schools, and I'm disgusted. You would hope and pray that our kids would be safe in school settings, especially in the bathroom. No, Karen, you need to understand. She needs to understand. Your children are safe because the transgender boy, he's a wonderful young girl. Then they're going to tell you that he's a girl. And as a girl, he's not aggressive. He would never do anything to harm your children. That's what they would tell you. And you say, you look at them and you say, you know what? No, I'm worried about my kids. I'm concerned about my kids, and I'm listening to you. Why would
your kid have to go through that shame? You know what I'm saying? Using the shy girl situation.
Right.
Why would she have to, get undressed in front of a guy? There's, you don't feel comfortable.
Right.
That's what they don't take that person's feelings into account. And again, they're in the majority, the large majority. This is such a small segment of the population. And this is how twisted our culture has gotten. You see, I've said this on a number of our shows, on a number of our platforms. The people who are administrators here, these are grown men and women who have children of their own. The guys go home, they kiss their wife, and when they walk in the door, they have children. You're going to stare at a 14-year-old girl in the face and advise them to transition into the body of a boy and be serious and go home to your wife and kids and be comfortable with yourself? Get the heck out of here.
No.
What are you, out of your mind?
Well, are they not out of their mind?
They are, because sadly this has been shoved down our throat and we've accepted it. And how I know we've accepted it? Because we vote for these people.
Right.
This is all voted. This is not forced upon us. Well, it is, but in a sense, we asked for it because we vote for them.
Right.
I've said this many times. There's certain things that disqualify you. I parallel it to slavery. If you're for slavery, you're disqualified. Well, guess what? If a politician, whether they're a Republican or a Democrat, tells me that a 14-year-old girl has to undress in front of an 18-year-old boy in a public school, you're disqualified. I'm not voting for you.
Right.
If you tell me that you can kill a child a day before it's born in the 9th month of pregnancy, which, by the way, is the Democratic platform on abortion, it's infanticide and it's disgusting, you're disqualified.
Right.
I'm not voting for you.
How
does anyone vote for these people?
Well,
anyone,
they've cobbled together. Let's give just want to give quick recognition. Dan says, please don't take the Dallas story as example of real Texans. We don't, Dan. We know you're a real Texan. And he says, we live 30 miles west in Fort Worth, and it's a universe of difference. No, absolutely. We know that about Texas. This happens to be Dallas. And like in many states, Dan, even though obviously Texas overall is a more conservative, a more red state, New Jersey outside of Essex County and a couple of other counties is all red. Morris County is red. Bergen County, like northern Bergen County, it's all red. The state is a red state, except for Essex County, Camden County, which is where the capital is, and Atlantic County, where Atlantic City is. The rest of the state is red. So no, we get it. There's good people in a lot of states. At one point, I was thinking the other day, at one point, when is it just going to happen where we tell the left, listen, we're going to separate the country. In other words, America's over. The experiment's over. Okay? Pick whatever side you want, because we're conservatives. We'll get along on either side. It won't matter. One side take the other side of the Mississippi. The other side take this side. You do what you want. We'll do what we want. We'll split the nukes. And we'll see who's still standing in 50 years. Okay? We'll see who's still standing. I bet their kids in one generation will be coming across the border trying to get into the good America as opposed to the bad America. But anyway, you're at the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello. We're at the front line. We're talking about all the nonsense out there. Sandra's joining us. Hey, Sandra, she says, hi, gentlemen. Greetings from Arizona. What you say is true. For too many Catholics, Christians, and conservatives are afraid to fight for what they believe. These other guys are definitely fighting louder than we are, and here we are. They are loud. But then again, we're a couple of goombas from North Jersey, and we're hoping to get a few million people to listen to our big mouths and start to organize in this country in a very practical way and in a powerful way and fight against them. That's what we have to do. We just lack. See, we conservatives, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, we conservatives, you know what we do? We get up and we go to work. P.J. O'Rourke had a great story in his book, Parliament of Fools, Parliament of Whores, years ago, right? In the intro, I think it was the introduction to the book. He's driving down the street. In other words, a father's driving down the street with his son, okay, his young son in the car, and there's a protester driving down the street in Washington, D.C. And over here, you got all these people screaming and yelling for some democratic cause or some leftist cause over here. And there's 10,000 people there, and they're all screaming and yelling. They're all shrill. And as they drive up a little further, there's a conservative protest against the protesters. And there's one person standing there with an American flag, just waving it like this. And the son asks the father, Dad, why are there so few people out here protesting against all those other people? He goes, well, because they're liberals and we're conservative and we all work. Because we all have a job. Now, I tell the story, I butchered it a little bit, but I tell the story to say, that's what we do as conservative, natural, normal, sane people, is we don't have time to protest in the street. Joe and I barely have time to do our show on the Crusade channel, all right, and have to do the show here on Sunday nights, okay, because we both work. Joe's got 3 kids and 1 on the way. My wife, please pray for my wife and I. We just got our approval from the state to be foster parents, so we're going to be hopefully fostering and adopting our children soon, okay? But we work. We work. We barely have enough time to do this. But I'll tell you what, though, it's worth doing.
And it's needed.
It's needed. Imagine if it's not just 2 guys. And there's a lot more than us. All right, let's be clear, okay? But the thing is, all you people out there, we work, but at some point, we have to, like Cincinnatus, the famous Romans. Cincinnatus had a problem. The Roman Senate had a problem. They needed somebody to lead the armies to go and fight because they were being invaded. Cincinnatus was plowing the field, and Cincinnatus put down his plow.
Dude, that's a fantastic name.
And Cincinnatus, he's a hero, Roman hero. Cincinnatus was plowing his field. He put down his plow. He put down his job and his own self-interest, and he went and he helped her. He helped to fight against the enemy, and when it was done, he went back to his plow. Okay, great example from Roman history. That's what we need to do. We need to be as vocal as they are. Take whatever time we have and fight this fight. That's what we're doing. As we're trying to do it.
Well, let's go to the VP, Mr. Pence. He, as you all know, is in charge of the coronavirus task force. The left went nuts, and he recently had a meeting, and he said a prayer before the meeting, and the left went insane.
Don't pray if you're in the government.
Bernie Sanders had some strong words for Mr. Pence. He called him disgusting, actually. I'll read you the quote exactly. He said, Trump's plan for the coronavirus so far, cut winter heating assistance for the poor. Really? Having VP Pence, who wanted to pray away the HIV epidemic, oversees the response. Let ex-pharma lobbyist Alex Azar refuse to guarantee affordable vaccines to all. Disgusting. So let me be clear. It wasn't just because of the prayer, but he did say that in an satirical way, kind of making fun of him. He oversees the response, and he was going to pray away HIV as well. But at the end of the day, why can't you say a prayer? Isn't the motto of our country, "In God We Trust"? He wasn't forcing anyone to pray at the meeting. He was praying. Why can't you do that? Why are you going insane? Why? I have no problem with you not believing in God, but why are you preventing me from believing in God? I'm not forcing you to say a prayer, or I'm not forcing you to say my prayer, but I should be allowed to say a prayer. Why? Because the motto of the country is "In God We Trust." Every state, all 50 of them, in the preamble of all 50 of the states' constitutions, mention the word God. This is not a secular democracy like the EU. Sorry.
Right. And why
wasn't set up that way.
And why was Obama allowed to pray? Why was it okay when Obama prayed? In other words, it's one thing if he prays, but it's wrong if Mike Pence prays, or if all those. And we're going to get into this little weasel Spike Lee later on. In other words, reacted to a picture of African Americans praying with Donald Trump and praying over Donald Trump. What's the problem with prayer? Mike Pence didn't sit there and say, "Heavenly Father, please get rid of the coronavirus." What he did was he prayed. Okay, I don't know the content of the prayer. He prayed for God's assistance while he and others combated the coronavirus.
What's wrong with that?
What's wrong with that?
I'm not forcing, and here's the deal. If you, I'll be honest with you. Say we were in a meeting with folks like that, and there was a Muslim there. I don't prescribe to his faith. If he prayed, I'm not going to be honest with you, if he asked me to kneel down, I'm not doing that. But if you want to pray, that's your business.
Right.
It's not your business. If you're a Jewish person and you want to pray in Hebrew, it's your business. I don't prescribe to your faith. I'll respect you as a human, but clearly we disagree. But if you want to pray, it's your business.
Right. I'm not going to turn around. I'm not going to turn around and say and be critical of you or attack you the way Mike Pence. Hey, look, I got plenty of criticism for Mike Pence, but not on this. Not on this. Invoking God. Problem is we don't invoke God enough in this country. If we invoke God more, you know where Bernie Sanders would be? He would never have become the mayor of Burlington, Vermont, let alone be on the ticket or potentially become president of the United States. If we ask God for his help a little bit more, as Joe likes to say all the time, because it's true. We've chased God out. I applaud Mike Pence for trying to bring God back in. But to ask God for assistance in our endeavors, in our struggles, okay, like in this case, the coronavirus, the hell is wrong with that? See, the guys like Bernie Sanders, they don't want to see anybody praying in government. No, that's separation of church and state. That's what he would say. Probably would say some sort of nonsense like that. He said, well, you know what? Sometimes Bernie Sanders, even though we call him a true believer and we know he speaks from his heart, but when he speaks from his heart, I still sometimes want to punch him in the face. Anyway, Assam's joining us, I think, for the first time. Hi, Assam. He says, how you guys doing? What are you talking about? Talking about a lot of things, Assam. Talking about a lot of things, and we're happy you're joining us here at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Priscillo and Joe Resinello. We're way into the breach. And I think Joe wants to mention why we should be a little leery of those people that call themselves Republicans.
Now, again, I'm glad we're going to have this discussion, because a lot of people say we're partisan, and we do basically have a lot of issues with the left on a lot of things. But sadly, those issues have to be discussed, because at the end of the day, I don't consider myself a Republican. I consider myself a Catholic, and I consider myself an American. I don't look left or right. I look up, and I will criticize anybody. I've had issues with the Catholic Church. I've had issues with Catholics on the show, and now we have an issue with Republicans. And this is basically, this story comes out of South Dakota. Basically, a group of lawmakers in South Dakota tried to pass a bill to ban radical medical experimentation for young children. Under heavy pressure from business groups like the Chamber of Commerce, the Republican-dominated legislature voted it down. This is bingo. South Dakota lawmakers had a chance to say no and spare their children from this insanity, and they declined.
For money. For money.
And when we say Republicans, this is how it was broken down. The South Dakota House is 59 Republicans, has 59 Republicans seated on it and 11 Democrats, and their Senate have 30 Republicans and 5 Democrats. And a bill to protect children from experimentation still failed. Remember that.
Remember that when you listen when somebody says, well, I'm a Republican, I agree with you. No, are you a member of the Chamber of Commerce? Because that's what this is about. And everybody who's listened to this show knows, what do we call them, Joe? We call them the Chamber of Commerce Christian Right, okay? Where the God for them is the market. The God for them is economic growth. They'll claim they're Christian. Those people, you know what? I'll criticize them more than I will your leftist Christians sometimes, because these guys know better. They make idols out of the market. They make idols out of economic growth. They make idols out of the bottom line. You just voted against children and their welfare for the sake of money. Is this a joke? Is that what this is? And because why? Because you call yourself Republican, I'm supposed to vote for you? This is why I can't stand them. This is why I can't stand them. Where they should be taking a page out of Donald Trump's playbook, okay, and trying to stand up on some of these issues, and they're subjecting kids to this.
And I'm assuming when they say radical medical experimentation, we're talking about transgender surgeries here, Joe.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, at the end of the day, it's not just liberals. It's basically people have their own interests and people have their own agendas, and the truth gets pushed aside. People compartmentalize their vote. You know, people have a way of just kind of blocking out. So they know something's wrong, and they block it out. Everybody knows that a 3rd trimester abortion is wrong. Are you out of your mind?
If you don't know that a 1st trimester abortion is wrong, at the very least, common sense should tell you that the 3rd trimester
but yet they just
wrong.
block it out. And same thing with this. Here's a kid. They're butchering their body. We've talked about this on other shows that out of Johns Hopkins, Dr. Paul McHugh basically has said that most children that have these inclinations, as their life goes on, he used the stats of 70 to 80% change their mind. So basically you're going to allow, this is Johns Hopkins. You're one of the best schools in the United States, one of the best medical schools on the globe. And you're basically going to permit a child to butcher their bodies, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. You're disqualified. You're disqualified.
You know what's funny about the whole money argument, though? Like, if you think about it, well, people just so obsessed with making money, and I just don't want to. You know, why do we have to deal with this stuff? No, because I just want to go to work. I just want to make money. I just want to live my life. I don't really care. During, you know, when the Nazis, when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, the next day, millions of American men went and they enlisted in the army. Okay, that's a fact. Okay, and they left their homes, they left their families to go and fight against the Japanese, and obviously Germany declared war on us. So now you're fighting against Germany. So you're fighting in Japan, in the Pacific, and you're fighting in Europe, and they risked everything. Many of them died. Many of them never came home. These families, the women were left widows and with orphans or with children that didn't have fathers. Okay, because they went out and fought against, let's say, Imperial Japan and Nazi Germany. They understood the idea of sacrifice. Do you think that the enemy we're facing within our borders now, because remember, Japan was over on the other side of one ocean, and the Germans were over on the other side of another ocean, okay? The enemy within our borders right now is infinitely more deadly to you and your children and your family than Nazis and Imperial Japanese. You understand that these people want to destroy your children, that you won't sacrifice a nickel or a day's work to defend your children against this? You shameful Chamber of Commerce, self-identified Christian people who would put the dollar before the well-being of children, and you don't understand that this is the enemy? Do you get the evil involved here?
That's very well put, because this is the enemy. You see, this is what's going on in our country, people. And we voted in.
Right.
We voted in.
Right. We'll do anything about it. And in this case, again, it comes down to money. We were worried about economic development. But your child, you're allowing a doctor to cut off your little girl's breasts.
Oh my gosh, it's absurd.
You're allowing them to medically castrate your young boy for money. I mean, is there a pit of hell that will be that you're looking forward to?
See, this
because that's where you're going for what you're doing to your
happens
children.
When you push God out of society. See, we don't have any more boundaries on ourselves anymore. See, God is a rudder in your life. It's a guiding principle. We may not all agree on religion, but one thing we can agree upon is when you have some form of religion in your life, it guides you. It simply does. It's a principle. You live by a certain principle. We may not agree on the theology, and we probably won't. However, when you push God out of society, that's why the motto of the country is "In God We Trust." There's something greater than this country. There's something greater than us, and we're not God. So we look to it to guide us in making decisions. When you throw that out, everything goes out with it.
Right.
Everything goes out with it.
When you have no respect for the natural law, and yes, that's the natural law, the one that says little girls are little girls and little boys are little boys, okay? And no so-called doctor is going to take a scalpel and mutilate them or shoot them up with chemicals so that the boy's castrated. When you're a person who recognizes the natural law, again, just elaborating on what Joe said, we're not going to agree theologically most of the time, all right? We wish we would, but we're trying to be realists. But the Catholic Church defines a person of goodwill. If you consider yourself a person of goodwill, which is important.
Absolutely.
All right? A person of goodwill recognizes the natural law and the moral law.
And it's written on everyone's heart.
Everyone's heart. Everyone's heart. Okay? When you recognize that, others will recognize that in you. Okay? And you're known as a person of goodwill, just like Joe and I would like to think you would consider us to be people of goodwill. We don't want to hurt anybody. We don't want to harm anybody. We tell the truth. We try our best to follow the moral law and recognize the natural law and you know, as the way society is ordered, the way we're supposed to order our lives. When you don't do that, you are no longer a person of goodwill. You are a person of ill will. When you think that you could overturn the natural law, when you think you're going to defeat nature, which is to say you think you're going to defeat God, God, when he gets back at you, and I don't mean that in a vengeful way.
No, but he's not going to get back at you.
God doesn't play any games. There are limits to what you could do as a human being. When you decide that you're going to tell boys that they can be girls and then go about trying to make that happen through surgery,
there's a well, what Joe's basically saying, there's a consequence. God doesn't like.
Yeah, I didn't mean get you.
No, but I just want people
know.
to be clear. Like, there's a consequence. The analogy I've always drew with that is gravity. If you didn't believe in gravity, jump off the roof. What happens? You fall. You get hurt. If you don't believe it again, jump off again. You see, there's consequences to our choices. We're free to make a choice, but we're not free to avoid the consequence. There are consequences to these choices. We're seeing them in our society because they go against the natural law.
And when you see the consequences, why is it that we can't all look at the consequences, which are obvious, and then say these are consequences of our actions. Therefore, we need to change our actions, which means we need to change our laws. I don't know whether you want to talk about what happens to young people as they grow up after they've been put through this abuse by doctors and parents. Whether you want to talk about the consequences of social policy that leads people to 80,000 people in San Francisco are homeless. They're crapping in the street and there's hypodermic needles all over the place. And nobody says, maybe that's our fault because of the stupid policies that we're pursuing. Maybe we ought to go back and do things a little differently here. Because that's obviously not right. A little girl who gets her breasts cut off, okay, that's obviously not right. A young boy who's medically castrated is obviously obviously not right.
And a parent's job is to protect the child from that.
Some of these parents need to be put in a straitjacket and locked away.
Please.
The children need to be taken away from them,
absurd.
and they need to be put with good parents.
It's absurd.
Okay, it really is absurd.
This is what's going on, and we just listed a number of cities. We went to Dallas, we went to San Francisco, and we went to the state of Wisconsin. I'm sure if we did some more research, and we can, we'll find instances it's going on all over the United States.
Right.
This is real. We're not making this stuff up. Just because the mainstream media doesn't cover it doesn't mean it's not going on.
Right. If we were making it up, we wouldn't have the stories that we took right off the internet. Okay, reliable sources written by journalists.
And there's statistics.
All right,
this
with
isn't just
statistics.
garbage. Look it up.
Dr. Paul McHugh's study that came out of Johns Hopkins University was full of statistics. It's called social science and medical science that looked at these issues of transgenderism that led Dr. Paul McHugh to say anybody who promotes this is promoting child abuse.
And you could write it off in your mind and say, well, it's because many people live this way. Well, it's not happening in my house. It just might.
It just might.
It just might.
If you allow it to keep going on, if you're sending your kids to public
school, you don't know what goes on during the day.
And they're not telling you. We covered it, Barbara. We covered it last week in Wisconsin. The public schools are trying to hide or they're being shady. They don't. They won't refer to the child by the name they want to be when the parents are around.
And also, a lot of people write things off in their head because they say that just goes on in that school. It doesn't go on in my school because I live in a rich community. They're some of the worst people who are doing this. It's the enlightened class that buys into this more than the working class.
Well, Joe, we say it all the time. It's a sad statement and it's a harsh statement. When little Johnny, who's no longer little, who's 22 years old, when he blows his brains out because you encouraged him to be transgender or gay or whatever the case might be, because the suicide rate is so high amongst those people. When little Johnny's laying on a slab and doesn't have a head anymore because he blew it off. I'll tell you something, mommy and daddy of little Johnny. It's your fault. Don't blame us. I'm not shaming that young man. I'm not doing anything. I want to help that young man. You let them just do what they wanted. You let the public schools take your kid and mold them the way they wanted to so you could go out and earn more money. And you weren't there for little Johnny. And he blew his brains out. Go look in the mirror and blame yourself. Do not blame the rest of us, because we tried to tell you you should do something about this, and you were so worried about being able to invite it to your liberal friends' cocktail parties because you didn't want to be called a hater. You wanted to be with the right crowd who's into all the politically correct, socially correct nonsense. Well, then too bad. You lost your little boy because of your actions. He blew his brains out, and that's the truth that you'll have to live with for the rest of your life.
Let's go to the polls.
Let's give a quick shout out. So. Dan, I didn't get your comment there, I think just because of the typos, but spiritual warfare. Dan, I got that one. Joe and I got that one. That is a reality. Spiritual warfare is a reality. And by the way, anybody who thinks that religion and spirituality doesn't play a part in all these political and social issues is really blind. This is all good versus evil. This is like, Joe, we're like the Marvel comics. You know, like we're like the superheroes. You know, we're but the only thing is we're fighting the spiritual battle. Because what is this meant to do? This agenda is meant to destroy. It's of the devil, okay? And I don't care whether or not you believe in the devil, because he's real too. It's of the devil. It's a spiritual battle where the evil one wants to kill you and your children in this world, and then kill you for eternity by sending you to hell. That's the goal. Don't ever make a mistake about that. And that's the truth. So anyway, natural law and people of goodwill is a good start, but we must recognize root causes. Absolutely, Dan. No question about it. Mark's joining. He says, great show. Thank you, Mark, so much. And thanks for joining us again here at the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo and Joe Rossinello. Where are we headed next, Joe?
We're going to go to the polls. There's growing support for Donald Trump in the black community. We all know this. Last stat I heard, there's 30% of the African-American community that is pro-Donald Trump. Sadly, there was an individual who was very upset about that this week and voiced his opinion on Instagram. That individual is Spike Lee. Spike Lee called all African-American supporters of Donald Trump house slaves. So that's over 30%. That's 3 out of 10. black folks in America are house slaves.
They're house slaves.
As per our friend Spike Lee.
Right.
Wonderful.
It's really like, where do you begin with this guy? Who's a child, by the way? Spike Lee has the mind of a little child. And it shows in his arguments that he's gotten into with Quentin Tarantino, saying, well, you use the N-word too much in your movie, so that means you must be racist, where obviously that's the furthest thing from the truth. Recently had an argument with the Knicks because he goes through the back door because he's Spike Lee. I've been coming through the back door at the Garden for 29 years, and finally he got stopped by security, and they said, you're going to have to go in the main door like everybody else. But he's elitist Spike Lee. So who are you to tell me? So you see in the fights that he picks, he is a child, is what he is. And I'll tell you another reason why he's a child, because children think superficially, and he thinks superficially, because he doesn't even understand the idiocy of his own argument. Let's talk, Spike. You want to talk, Spike? Let's talk. Because, by the way, I know after this, Spike Lee, if he sees this, he'll go out and he'll tweet that we're racist too. I hope you do, and I hope you call us a racist in front of our black wives, because either his wife or my wife is going to punch you right in your face, and they're blacker than you. But having said that, does he realize the idiocy of his argument? He calls people who are now striving to be independent-minded and releasing themselves from the black liberal establishment and look to other ideas as being slaves. Yet the slavery which exists right now in the inner cities amongst black people is being perpetrated on them by the black and white liberal establishment, for whom he votes.
Case in point, Washington, D.C. school system. You're a single mom. You have a young girl. She's a nice young girl, and you want to send her to a good high school. It's a charter high school. You're not allowed to do that. Nope. Got to send her to prison, where 3 in 10 kids graduate, and the rest of them basically are fighting for their life every day. That's what those schools are, by the way. They're prisons. Straight up and down.
No.
How Newark graduates 3 out of 10 kids, Newark public school system. Why can't that mother send their kid to a different school? See, I can do that because I can afford it. Why can't she? She can't afford it.
And why are you enslaving her, Spike Lee? That's my question.
Now, Spike, all you education folks out there say, no, it's about the kids, it's about the kids. I'm gonna solve the problem right now. How about we pool all the money? So, you see town of yours. How about we pool the money? Mm-hmm. So, it's one common school.
Yeah, wait, I got a school district for you. I got a school, AOC school district, Yorktown Heights, New York. I think it was Mike Knowles who basically said she didn't grow up in the Bronx. She grew up upstate New York in Westchester. That's a very wealthy area. Let's take that AOC school district. Go ahead.
But you pool it. So basically Camden and, say,
Upper Saddle River,
Alpine, New Jersey, same. Everybody's the same. You'll never vote for it.
That's right.
You'll never, all those people who are against charter schools would never in a million years vote for it. Why? Because it affects your kid.
That's right. And then my question to Spike Lee is this. Joe made a good point. Those inner city schools, they are all, he called them prisons, I call them plantations. It's all the same thing. Where are the slaves? You support people, Spike Lee, who are the real slave masters, because they will not buck the public education establishment, which is chock full of white and black liberals. And you're very happy with supporting those people who enslaved that single mom in let's say, the city of Newark, who wants to send her child to a charter school. And people like you say, no, who's she a slave to then? You're making her a slave. Donald Trump's not making her a slave. Donald Trump's trying to help that woman to get her kid into a charter school or to foster some homeschooling programs or, heaven forbid, some tax assistance or relief to send their kids to a Catholic school, which crush all the rest of the schools, by the way. Even the piss-poor state of Catholic education in America is still better than the public school system. Why are you so opposed to that? And why are the people that promote that for that mom in the inner city? How am I her slave master? I'm a Trump supporter. How am I her slave master?
I'm actually for that mother.
I'm for that mother. You are her slave master because you're telling her son or her daughter has to go to the public school.
And your kid isn't.
And you have a choice, Spike.
By
Your
the way,
kid's not going to public school.
Obama, your two daughters didn't go to that school. You see, that's the crime. And yet they try to shame the black community.
Right.
Calling them a house slave.
And I'd love to see you, little Spike Lee, you little twerp. I'd love to see you call Jim Brown a house slave. He might knock you into next week. You know, you're a little 11-year-old. You never made a coherent argument in your life. You don't do it in the area of sports when it comes to your precious Knicks. You don't do it in the area of culture when it comes to Quentin Tarantino. And you certainly know nothing about politics. You're better off, like all young children, all right? You're better off just shutting your mouth and going to read a book and learn something. Because you contribute nothing to our society. I'll tell you that right now. You're a bomb thrower. That's what you are. You are a film director, and you want to make sure you ingratiate yourself consistently with